There we go. We've got Matt Johnson, who stepped in at the very last minute from to replace Phil. He owed me one because I did a bunch of video for him while we were at Reinvent. So that's how that works. Tell us who you are, Matt, where you're from, and what you're up to at the moment.
Yes, thanks very much. I'm Matt Johnson. I'm a developer advocate with Bridgecrew, now part of Palo Alto. So I'm focused on kind of everything related to helping developers make security less of a pain in the ass in the cloud. And yeah,
excellent.
Based in Manchester. And welcome to Yorkshire. Looking forward to having you.
Yes, excellent. Good stuff. Are you involved in meetups around the AWS community in Manchester?
Obviously, we've got ComSum, but that's been virtual for, pretty much since I kind of got back into the meetup scene in Manchester. So not in person, but looking forward to getting back into it, like you said, when there's less than 3 years of COVID nonsense looming.
Excellent stuff. We're also joined this evening by Jason. Why don't you introduce yourself, Jason? Who are you? Where you come from?
Yeah, sure. Jason Gregson for my sins, and I'm currently in Norfolk in the UK. So, and luckily for me, the company I work for, we're 100% remote. So this is my home and my office and everything in between.
Excellent stuff. And what's the thing that's sort of occupying you in the AWS space right now? What do you spend your days doing?
Yeah, so up until very recently, like the beginning of the year, I was a senior solution architect here, helping customers with all sorts of technical elements, and just helping them really understand what AWS is, how to make the best use of it, and that side of thing. And then January, I decided to move slightly to the dark side, more management. So now my role is looking after sort of AWS programs and operations. How can we make this better for our customers? And then building that relationship between Amazon and ourselves and understanding those elements. So just to preface that, I was a senior solution architect at Amazon for 5 years. So a lot of experience in understanding the culture and the things that we should be doing that we may not necessarily be doing to make it better anyway. So that's where my role is at the moment.
Gotcha. So you've seen both sides of that equation. I guess. You say you were there 5 years ago, or you were there for 5 years?
I was at Amazon 2 years ago for 5 years. So 2015.
Right.
Yeah, I started.
Gotcha. Yeah, all those programs seem to have changed a lot over the last 2 years. I imagine it's a completely different beast from your perspective as well. Now
they seem to change every 10 minutes. I don't know about 2 years ago.
that's probably
Amazon
fair.
Reinventing that flywheel.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of reinvent, that's a good segue, isn't it? I should be on radio with this. So speaking of reinventing things, I believe we were all at Reinvent, right? The three of us were there in person. Obviously, I didn't see you there, Jason, but obviously saw Matt. How was your sort of COVID Reinvent experience? Matt, why don't you tell me how it went for you? Have you been during non-pandemic times? Have you got a comparison point?
Yeah, I've been a couple of times. I think the last time I went was 2017. I liked it. A little bit smaller, a little bit easier to kind of get around the corridors, but still nowhere near what you'd call a small conference. But it was like a good non-crazy full, cannot get anywhere, no way of getting into sessions if you turn up late because there's no spare seats. It just felt right, to be honest. It was nice.
How about you, Jason? Was that your experience as well?
Yeah, no, I've been to lots as an employee, but this is my first time as a customer / partner. So for me, it was a completely different experience. So normally it's sort of 16-hour days running around like a mad person just trying to get everything done and stepping in and helping out where things break down or people disappear, whatever it may be. So this year was lovely for me, simply because I was on the other side of the fence and I could do what I wanted to. So that was really lovely. The organization was fantastic. The event, I think most of it was really good. And back to Matt's point in terms of actually being able to get into sessions, that was awesome, rather than, just having no hope of getting into anything and having to book it up weeks in advance type of thing and desperately waiting for that announcement to say, yes, all the sessions are open now, go book. So that was great. The only thing I think could have been better was some of the content could have been a bit stronger, but hey, it was a difficult year for everybody. So kudos to Amazon for getting it up and running.
Yeah, good stuff. So, am I right in thinking that actually, as an Amazon employee, you're actually not allowed to attend quite a lot of the stuff because they're saving the chairs for the punters, the paying people?
You're not allowed to attend any of them. There was a way a couple of years ago that I was able to attend because I was working with the marketing department and we were sort of capturing questions and videos and stuff like that of the event. So I was allowed to attend in that case. But then again, I still didn't get to choose. It was like, we want to do some information on this particular event or that particular thing. So go and do that and go and ask some pertinent questions or whatever it may be. So, but yeah, there is no choice. You cannot go in. You can't stop customers going in. And like Matt said, they're always oversubscribed.
Yeah.
Previous colleague of mine was actually is working currently at Amazon and was there on site. So we hung out quite a bit, and by the end of it, he was just going insane. He's like, there are so many things I want to do, and you would think because I have an Amazon badge, I'd be able to do them, but obviously customers come first. So it was really good to see that Amazon properly enforced that, because by the end of it, he was actively trying to get into things. And
is that our mutual friend, Matt? Or
it is our mutual friend. You can imagine he is the kind of person that would go, sod it, I'm just going to try and get into this and see what happens.
Yeah. No, I get that. We actually had dinner, he and I, that week, and his mental state seemed fine, so no need to worry too much about it. Just as an aside for those of you viewing the stream, if you do have any questions about the stuff that we're talking about this evening, do throw them into the chat, and I will try and sort of bring them into the conversation. It'd be interesting to ask, actually, is anybody else who is on the feed right now, were you at Reinvent? How was that for you? Be good to hear that. Was it your first one? Have you been before? Are you just hoping to live vicariously through our Reinvent experiences, and that's why you've joined the feed? Do tell us your Reinvent stuff. So I guess, obviously, one of the big things about Reinvent is the new products announcements, or the sort of announcements around changes to products. Obviously, I'm always astounded when we start at the start of the week at Reinvent. I sort of look back at the last few weeks and see what's been going on. You'd sort of expect that everything would quieten down in the Amazon product machine ahead of Reinvent, so they have something to announce. But it's busier. There's like all this stuff that they announce ahead of time before Reinvent even starts. So I guess let's think about those announcements as well as what was announced on the stage. Matt, any particular sort of big standout announcements for you that were exciting or that seemed really relevant for the customers you work with?
That entire couple of weeks, like you said, I guess that's the benefit and the downside of having a billion different services. Those 2 weeks were a bit of a blur, so I'm struggling to remember what was a pre-announcement and what was an actual announcement. But obviously, from the security perspective, I'm not particularly bothered about the container registry kind of pull-through proxy stuff, but I know that a lot of people that are dealing with kind of production workloads and looking at securing kind of software supply pipelines we're really happy with that feature. Very, very happy to see kind of more work going into automated detection, inspection, and things like that. But yeah, I wouldn't put money on whether that was announced beforehand or in a session that I attended.
I think it was announced during Reinvent. That's my recollection of it. It was certainly sort of around that, very near around that time. So I guess for those watching, that this is the ECR container registry, being able to pull in containers from external repositories or external registries, so that you can then apply your scanning and your security rules to that, and so that you can be sure that all of the things that you are deploying into your container ecosystem on AWS have come from something that's flowed through that repo, right? Really kind of useful for knowing where your stuff is coming from, or at least improving the chances that you know where your stuff has come from. It's a difficult problem.
Yeah, and then also being able to kind of, have that hybrid. I want to lock everything down so that my clusters can only talk to that registry and no outbound access, but also not having to go and manually do all that pull through when you're initially setting things up and doing that first deployment. So yeah, kind of a nice step in the right direction to a more kind of secure set of dependencies.
Yeah, and I guess relevant in the Lambda world as well now that you can build Lambdas from container images, which was an announcement from the previous year's reInvent, or maybe the year before that. Time is quite complex at the moment, isn't it? It's difficult to tell exactly when.
I want to stake a bet on that being the virtual one during lockdown. I think.
Yeah, I think that might be right there. So John's asking, does the ECR pull through have a lagged "let everyone else get pwned ahead of me" setting that keeps one end revisions behind the public registry? I don't know the answer to that. Do either of you have an answer to that question?
I don't know, but I think it should be a feature request that we put forward.
Yep, seems fair. I imagine you could probably do that with. So there are some patterns. I think Mark Nunikoven talked about this when he was on our feed last year, where in order to push container updates across your estate, you can use EventBridge events as new container versions become available, and then use that to trigger reprovisioning of stuff in your estate. So I guess you could probably put that sort of let's have the last but one version in your lambdas, or maybe kind of, I don't know, stick a delay in there to leave it sort of half a day just to make sure that you don't catch anything nasty.
Downloads greater than 10 million. Then
yeah, that'd be fun. Any standouts for you, Jason, either in the security domain or otherwise?
There was one in the security domain that sort of is not directly security domain related, but sort of filled me with a bit of fear, and that's the RDS custom that you can have as well now.
Right.
So I don't know if you saw that. So this is the ability to sort of run as, in terms of SQL Server, as SA. It's all of those. And I can see where it's positioned. I can see how it's positioned and why. And it's attracting enterprises to start using SQL Server in a way on RDS, still getting all the benefits of RDS. But obviously with RDS, it's a very limited subset of security that you can actually manage on there. They decide, Amazon decide on how you can use this, what's the best way to do it, and effectively you can go run your SQL code. Now with custom, you can now do some things that you shouldn't normally be able to do. For example, T-SQL, go and point to that there and run it as the SA user. That fills me with dread in terms of allowing the customers to do what they think is right in RDS. And they've taken some provisions in terms of, making sure they can't mess with the replication partners and that sort of side of it as well. Yeah. So I see where it's coming from, but I like the sort of shared security model. This is where you stop and this is where we start. That one really blurs those lines.
Yes.
And that's the one that sort of fills me with dread, because the flip side of it is that whilst it's great to get those enterprises, I mean, it could just be a legacy application equally as well. Mm-hmm. But to get those on board, great. But are you fundamentally going to change the way that they're approaching cloud or doing what they're doing by enabling that sort of behavior? That sort of that's the scary part for me as well.
Yes, yeah. It's
it's like.
My understanding of that offering then is that you see the EC2 instance that a deployment of your database runs on, but you run an agent on it that makes it behave like an RDS cluster. So automated updates and security changes are sort of filtered in through the Amazon control plane, but you can still get into the database as a root user and do whatever you like on there. I think so. I guess my sort of initial thoughts around that. I know of a number of customers who've used third-party plugins to their database that are maybe a little too niche for Amazon to think about actually productizing and making available as an RDS plugin, but either for sort of reporting or some weird GIS stuff or something like that, where those users were probably already running the databases on EC2, and now they don't have to do as much running that database, and probably that improves where they are from today, but still leaves those machines open to being kind of mismanaged, I suppose.
I just don't think it's an update not just going to become an automated breaking.
Well, I mean, that is a concern, isn't it?
Yeah, for me, it's more about that sort of boundary of control, really. It's like, it was pretty bulletproof. There was very little you could do inside RDS that would have any material impact on its availability to I mean, sure, you could take it down, delete it, create backups and those sort of things, but there was so little that you could actually do to actually break it. Now the scope seems to be a lot bigger. That's all. So I don't know how that's going to pan out. It might be perfect, but my initial reaction to that was, "Whoa, that doesn't smell good." It solves a lot of problems. Don't get me wrong, but it's solving the problems by sort of simplifying or allowing customers to do things that they really shouldn't be doing anyway.
Yeah, that's a fair take, I think. Was there anything that was announced that didn't give you the fear, Jason?
Yeah, again on RDS, I don't know what was with it. I'm no database expert, but the RDS guru side of it as well, to actually really dive into and getting some deep, meaningful data around how your application's performing, that sort of monitoring, observability side of it as well, and the guru side of it in terms of actually making recommendations, finding those long-running queries, all of that side of it was absolutely awesome. I haven't had the ability to try it myself just yet, but certainly from reading about it and having a look at it, it looks like one of those things that can really make a big difference. You see a lot of customers doing very bad things with databases, and
isn't that what they're there for?
Could be, but this is one of those things that sort of demystifies it as well. It's like, a lot of the times it's like, oh yeah, why is this application slow? Oh, it must be the network, it must be the application. A lot of the times it's just some horrible inner join that you've done in a SQL database that just shouldn't be there. So this is a way of sort of discovering that, and then effectively, you can start reducing those costs. I see customers just scaling vertically their databases, because by doing that, suddenly the long running query goes away and it's halved its time, but it's doubled your costs. So should you really be just dumping in and doubling out costs and everything else? Because eventually that reaches a plateau that there is no bigger box anymore. So now what are you going to do? So whether or not you want to afford it, there is a threshold that you can't move on past that. So for me, that's a great sort of cost optimization tool. It allows you to focus more on, should we be doing this? Is there a better way of doing this? Is it the most secure way of doing this? Oh, I didn't realize this application or this particular query was going out and reaching out to all these different places. So just that observability. And for me, that was the real standout announcement. If there were standout announcements at Reinvent 2021, that would be the one for me.
Yeah, good stuff. Matt, anything else that comes to mind? I see someone in the feed, Gaija has shared a link to a list of announcements that help jog your memory about what was announced.
I've very much thanked him with my with my Twitch handle, which is good. Yeah, there were a couple of things that I thought I'd watched a session on, which actually came afterwards. So, compounding the blur there. Couple of things really for me. I was on a non-security perspective. So something that annoyed me, I guess, on a security perspective was I am always still underwhelmed by the scope of the security options. And I get it. I get that, the party line is it's better to have multiple security tools so that one security tool to rule them all, run by one team at Amazon, doesn't miss something. And I get that. But I think it's it kind of to me shows where every service being its own team and its own dev kind of does lack a little bit, in the same way we see non-fully fleshed out IAM scopes for certain services. I want something that just really does respond and proactively tie more security stuff together. I want the ability to say, this is a small team that has no security people. I would rather you had an admission controller style block on things that they could do which would expose them to risk, rather than provide them another service with extra alerts that they need to go and focus on. Give me a newbie security button that right. helps people, do more kind of secure by default stuff, even if it comes with a little bit of frustration. So I was kind of hoping for a bit more than just kind of Kubernetes scanning for vulnerabilities in what's the word I'm looking for? Inspector,
right?
Things like that. I was just looking for more capabilities than were added. But
is there, Matt, to that question, is there a service or an application or anything else that does that right now that you could sort of create an analog to? Because I don't know of such a thing.
Oh, well, if you're asking,
Are you going to say Bridgecrew? Is this where we're going with this?
But that is exactly what our company Bridgecrew.io.
Well, hey, I would
we
never have
try
known.
and we try and apply policies for security from the moment you start writing infrastructure as code in VS Code or IntelliJ, all the way through to detecting drift on what you wrote in VS Code through your pipeline, and then finding that drift in kind of AWS or pick your favorite cloud.
Sure.
Okay.
But it's still, our users are probably quite advanced down that line of understanding DevOps enough to know that
there is a problem in that, right? I guess.
Right, exactly. And to kind of implement DevSecOps and to kind of realize that you need to shift that security requirements into your dev teams. I'm talking about, like you said, your kind of enterprises that are just kind of plonking SA level databases and things into, and more we're seeing the definition of on-prem being, I have my own VPC in a cloud provider. That's all kinds of scary.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, to be honest. I'd rather see that than actual physical on-prem hardware these days. But so I guess
unless it's running at one of the Anywhere services, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Or outposts.
Yes,
right.
So I think there are some ways of sort of getting to that security posture in the existing AWS ecosystem, but they do require a lot. You have to know that they're there. You have to know that you need to be thinking about them. It's the sort of thing that I'm sure Jason, as a AWS partner, and certainly we do, is one of those activities when you're setting up new stuff for customers, or when you're going to remediate some security issues. Is you sort of start at that and go, okay, let's turn off all of this stuff and let's enable this dashboard and so forth. But you have to know to do that, and it's sort of non-differentiated, but you still have to do it all, which is I think the challenge there. But it's an evolving landscape. You mentioned Outpost, but let's talk about the other sort of weird on-prem stuff that was announced. AWS private 5G, build your own 5G phone network in your premises. Like any thoughts on that?
That is actually in my list of things I wanted to talk about that aren't security related. Like not just the 5G thing, although that is so cool. And I'm like, how the hell are they getting away with offering that when, FCC conversations around licensing would take years usually. So they're actually using a civil broadband band that doesn't require specific per use licenses, and managing the spectrum and sharing the spectrum with online and things. So that's a really clever way of kind of previewing their technology and building that out. But just a moment to think that from a cloud that is all about the cloud, it's insane just how many kind of physical devices that are cloud managed we are now seeing. Not only 5G, you can get cloud managed Wi-Fi meshes. We're seeing, all the Alexa devices and things like that, where they're building their own silicon, obviously with Graviton. Like,
Panorama,
it's so interesting
that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that it's kind of gone full circle, that to innovate further now into other industries, they are actually building cloud managed hardware, which for me was like a really interesting takeaway, as like this is something to watch. Like there is something there.
Gotcha.
For me, I think they're just enabling, large parts of the market that wouldn't necessarily be able to directly talk to Amazon in terms of Amazon Web Services anyway. So, you look at the huge enterprises, the car manufacturers, the oils and pharmaceuticals and all these sort of things as well, that really want to keep it nice and neat and tidy all in one thing, so not having to have this diversification, and therefore those security boundaries and all that side of it as well. Some of the hardware is quite cool. Some of the hardware is really poor. You're better off with a Raspberry Pi and doing it that way. So, but yeah, no, I like to see some of the hardware. I've played with a lot of it in the past. Most of the time it's cheaper, better, faster to do it somewhere else, but it's nice to have it sort of semi-integrated and part of that support as well. So and the Outpost thing, get it. There's plenty of customers that have their stuff that they need almost 0 millisecond latency, but then being able to roll it out in the same way that they can roll out on real cloud, by having it locally, awesome for them. It sort of removes some of those barriers, enables them to run faster in a more sort of orchestrated way that they're doing already, i.e. using it in AWS, crack on and do it locally as well. So the two new servers that they brought in there, it was great to see there's a Graviton one in there as well. So lovely stuff.
Yes, and Graviton 3 was announced at Reinvent as well, right? The latest generation of Amazon's own chips, apparently with specific features that enable certain types of inference to be faster. I don't really care about ML. If Phil was here, as he should have been, we'd have probably covered some of the ML stuff in a bit more detail. There was a lot of SageMaker stuff announced, but I tend to skip that keynote because it's not really very interesting to me, to be honest. Graviton 3, interesting, reducing the price, improving performance, improving energy usage as well is all pretty interesting stuff. Lots of price reductions as well, like S3 storage and CloudFront. Obviously, a change to the pricing that was almost certainly motivated by one of the other CDN vendors making a whole bunch of stuff free. I think Cloudflare released a bunch of free stuff that forced Amazon's hand on that one. But yeah, interesting savings on DynamoDB, CloudFront, S3. Some good stuff there. We're coming up on time. Is there anything that you were hoping to see but didn't, or anything that you'd like to predict for this year as a sort of theme for what we might see at Reinvent 2022? Jason, why don't you kick off with that one?
Yeah, sure. What I've loved being a partner, so coming out from Amazon and then going to a partner, what I'd love to have seen is a more focus on the ability for partners to onboard customers, because as you know how tightly coupled the payment side of it and the technical side of AWS are, it makes it very, very difficult for partners to consolidate customers on board. Not so much to leave, but there's always this, how do we manage a root account and all these sort of elements as well. So what I'd love to have seen is an enablement of partners to move quicker to onboard customers, as equally as to offboard them when the customer decides to leave. Alas, there was nothing that enabled any of that sort of devolution, if you like, of the account and the payment of the account. So for me, that would have been the lovely thing, and that's the thing I've been asking Amazon for years, but no. And then predictions, it's going to be ML, and ML plus S3 with ML. So
Fair. Yeah, I think anything that involves multiple account management is sort of hampered by the fact that the sort of account management primitives were sort of invented a very long time ago.
Correct. Yeah. And
they're fighting through a lot of legacy. I listened to, I can't remember whether this was just an ambassadors only kind of talk or one of the public ones, but Bridget Johnson, who's the queen of IAM, was talking about a certain amount of the limitations that exist around. You'd love to be able to just sort of provision and deprovision accounts really easily. It turns out that that's using code that was released 15 years ago, and it turns out there's a lot of legacy to solve.
I mean that's where the other cloud vendors have been able to sort of lean into that to say, okay, you've been doing this wrong for the last 6 or 7 years. We're going to do this a completely different way. So I understand why. I just want them to giddy up and fix it.
Yep, fair. Matt, anything that you were hoping to see and didn't see, or any predictions for the Reinvent 2022?
Yeah, predictions for Reinvent 2022. Obviously, 3 scoops of ML, but also more cloud-managed physical stuff. I'm going to stake a statement on that.
Oh, okay.
Okay. We're recording this, right?
Yeah, I know.
We're going to come back next year and we'll go, a year ago.
I am that serious, yeah. Things I am disappointed to see, I keep banging this drum, very much related to Jason's point, and probably the reasoning behind it is the same as what you've just said, John. I want, effectively as a customer, to be able to buy an instance of Event Engine, because Amazon is so big now that if we're trying to train people up, if we're trying to kind of get, whether it's students, whether it's people moving into tech, like AWS itself, how you manage it, how you configure it, how you secure it, is as much a technical hurdle as the code and the actual things you're deploying on it.
Yep.
And without the ability to really easily, as a partner, as a company, just go, hey, I'm giving you all an account for this webinar that's safe, and you don't have to worry about billing, and then we can rip it down as soon as the training session's over, for universities, for sessions, for sales. Obviously, shout out to Yaniv and our kind of SAs that do an amazing job of giving us access to Event Engine for our own webinars and things, and we love working with them. But to be able to do that ourselves sometimes it'd be super powerful.
Yeah. So Event Engine is, for those watching and unfamiliar, that's the system by which, if you're doing a game day with Amazon, like the unicorn rental stuff that they do from time to time, or the security game day, Event Engine is how they generate accounts with all of that sort of game day stuff in it and provide you with credentials to log in and so forth. And it is entirely the case that right now you have to engage a partner solutions architect to run that up for you. I believe that is the goal. I think they want to get to the point where you can do that as a partner, but I think they're a little way off that. Internal tooling needs a lot of polishing before it can be sort of handed out willy-nilly to the likes of us, I guess.
Just release Isengard. That would be perfect. There's an internal tool at Amazon which allows you to provision accounts and that sort of thing.
Right.
And as a lonely little SA, I was able to provision more and more accounts. But there is a tool called Isengard which allows you to manage all of that and your manager to manage it and everything else.
Yep.
As a partner tool, that thing would be awesome. And as an enablement tool for any customer that has more than one account, acquisitions, enterprises, all of that sort of thing, it would be so good. Just release it, guys. Just release it out to the world. We'll play with it. It's fine. Honestly, we won't sell.
Yeah, we'll keep putting pressure on the right people for that. My
testers.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So my ask is as it has been for the last 2 or 3 years, can we have Cognito that isn't shit? Is really the thing. Like, can we have a Cognito that works well for B2B style SaaS solutions? Can we back it up, please? Can it be in more than one region? Like, there's a load of operational pain in Cognito that exists and has never been solved. I've been trying to talk to the Cognito team about their roadmap for about the last 12 months, and they're very slippery. The ambassador team is trying to get us access to that as well, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll talk about it in the new year, and well, hello, it's the new year, what's going on? But we'll keep putting pressure on that one as well. That's my wish list. So my hope for Reinvent 2022, replacement with Cognito. I can't see that happening, but it'd be nice. We've got Jabbersoft added their sort of take. It'd be nice to have a richer CI/CD experience, plugging into the many AWS services when needed, that when deploying and managing apps and infrastructure, self-hosting Jenkins and a bunch of custom Terraform is pretty dull. Yep, that's probably fair. The CI/CD experience with the code pipeline stuff is a little bit kind of bare bones, isn't it? But maybe we'll see some improvements there. So fingers crossed. Cogni 2, yeah, Cogni 2 would be a great name for the Cognito replacement. Plus one for Cognito from Pentafox UK. Yep. We'd all love to see it. Anyone who's been anywhere near it will know that. One of the problems is that it's about a tenth of the price of any of the commercial offerings, so it's still really kind of still really attractive to try. And all the pain points you learn later when you kind of come to think about backups after you've built your product. So lots of pain there.
Well, double the price on version 2 and call it Cogni 2, and I think everybody will be happy as long as it solves those problems.
Absolutely, good stuff. Cool. Well, thanks for joining us on the stream today, Jason, and to Matt. Thanks for jumping in at the last minute. It's been great chatting with you. I will come and find you in Manchester for a pint when I'm officially in the north. In the meantime, do feel free to hang around and chat in the Twitch chat as we carry on with the proceedings of the evening. Other than that, I will let you get back to your families, coding, whatever it is that you're spending your time doing. So thanks very much, chaps.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for the invite. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers. All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.